Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode. It's Capturing the Game Within the Game podcast. I'm your co-host Desmond Jones. Also, my other co-host Brady would not be joining us today, but he's always part of the show in heart and spirit. Today we got another fantastic guest that I can't wait to get a chance to interview. Her name is Tiffany Lockett. Tiffany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. It's awesome
Good.
to get to meet you and get to know you. Um, for for our audience that's out there that's listening, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a Midwesterner. I come from Ohio. I'm originally from Worcester, Ohio. I moved to, DC, the DC metro area, but I moved to Virginia in 2000 and I lived there about 20 years. And then I moved here to Dallas, Texas, recently on my birthday, September 24th. So I've been in Texas for a few months and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. I grew up playing basketball my whole life, as well as all different sports. But I always knew I was going to coach. My father was a football coach at the College of Worcester for 30 plus years, and I grew up breaking down film with him from the age of 10 on his bedroom wall with the old projectors, where you had to put the reel in and, and feed
Ooh,
it and,
Jesus!
get started. Yeah. So I'm dating myself right now.
Ooh,
But, I grew up with me being athletic and, sports. And like I said, I always knew I was going to coach. But I went to Baldwin Wallace College. And once I got out of school, I then ended up getting into recreation. So I did recreation for a while. And then when I moved to Virginia, I became a firefighter. So I was a firefighter, I was a driver operator and an officer for 6 years. And then it beat my body up pretty good. And I was like, okay, it's time to do what I knew I was always going to do, and that's coach. So I've been coaching ever since 2011, and just loving it, just definitely loving it.
wow! So I know I did a little research about you being a firefighter. I heard that in an interview. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So one of my favorite TV shows is like Chicago Fire. Is how much is that like is it just online or is it really just too TV ish with what goes on with a day to day like as being a firefighter?
I won't say it's there are a lot of things that are online, but then there are
Yeah,
some things that just aren't.
yeah.
So so at times it's hard, and I'm sure for other people in different, their professions, to watch your profession because you're
Mm-hmm.
nitpicking every little scene, scenario, what they did and said. And well, that you wouldn't have done that because of, fill in the blank.
Right.
But there is a lot of realism to it. But at the end of the day, it's still television, so it's got to be sensational. And in all actuality, in the fire department, I ran more medical calls, more, vehicle, someone stuck in a tree, or a cat's in it. We literally ran a cat in a tree and also a dog stuck in a fence. So there, it's not as sensational as people think. The more day to day is really, medical type calls. You might get that sensational fire call every now and again where it's a high rise or an apartment building, or a house fire. So I used to work at a Swift water station, and I have some pictures of me out on ice, all geared up with these picks, going across ice. And, luckily we never had to cut anyone out of the ice, but, when it rains and starts flooding, the having to push a car, out of, and it, a little river that, a pool of water that formed, or, having to, help someone across the road that flooded out and they're stuck in their car. So that's more, of the kind of stuff, that we did.
Okay, okay. I was just curious. That was completely off topic, off subject, but I was just curious
No, it's
about
okay.
it.
A lot of people are like that. When you see something on TV, you're like, is that
Yeah,
what it's like in real life? That
yeah.
everybody wants to know that. So it's very valid, but it's interesting. When I got inducted into my high school Hall of Fame, one of the things that I said, as a coach, I saved more lives than I did as a firefighter. And, that's very true because, like I said, of the types of calls that we run, we see in the fire department, you see people at their worst, when they're, emergency. And for young adults and children, you're getting that to them, not in emergencies, but at a time in their life where they're very vulnerable and impressionable, they're developing, and you get to help guide that child or that player in a way that being in the fire department, you don't. You're in the fire department, it's an emergency and you've got to get there and you've got to, handle that emergency. But as a coach, you might have emergencies that creep up, but you're able to help guide them and in their development, in their growth, in a very, exponential way that you don't get to in the fire service.
That's very good information because, like I said, Chicago Fire one of my favorite shows. So I always like. I know that's not what it's like on a day to day basis, but I just try to fill in the blanks. um, so you so welcome to the Midwest. I'm originally from Illinois, so I always
Okay.
Ohio was never really my favorite state amongst the Midwest, but I won't hold that against you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
um,
I'm a LeBron fan, even though
okay,
he's out in LA.
I
I'm
I
a Brown fan. He'll always be Akron, Ohio, and we're right next to Akron, Ohio. So yeah.
okay, I got mad respect for LeBron. So I'm not one of these LeBron haters or anything. So I'm a
Ah,
big supporter of LeBron.
mhm.
Um, how much did so I know you mentioned that your dad, you grew up watching, film with your dad, and that's how you knew coaching was for you. When you was breaking down like film and stuff, like what were some of the things that you looked for or kind of helped your father did when you're breaking down film, and then how did that like those skills that you learned at an early age transfer to what you're currently doing right now?
Absolutely. Well, it's all about mechanics. Sport is
Mm-hmm.
mechanics, how you move, foot placement, things like that. So he would walk me through and talk me through foot placement and how your hips are turned and facing and what that means, how you can lock your hips in or down, how hand placement, where your hand should be, in order to get a certain result, things like that. You always hear coaches say, keep your head on a swivel. And he was a defensive line coach. So, he would talk to me about the importance of that, about being aware and visualizing things and swiveling your head, as the play is moving and as you're progressing. We talked about nuances that I think that's why I'm a little things coach. I pick up nuances very quickly when I'm, just watching a simple game on TV or in the gym. And that comes from, having that eye, having my father, kind of say, do you see that? And I'll say, yeah, his foot was here and this is what he did, and then I'll say, well, that time his foot was there or his hand was there and this happened. And he'll say, yeah, and that's because, and then, and we'll talk through those things. And that 100% translates over to the game of basketball because footwork starts in the feet, in any sport, that you play. It starts in the feet. If you have poor footwork, well, then usually it's hard to bring along the other stuff. You see players that shoot or they do things from the waist up, and they're only successful, but for so long or so far, and then they don't understand why this isn't working, why I can't, be more consistent and things like that. And I say, well, it starts in your feet. If you're flat-footed, if you're on your heels, then you can't turn. It's hard to plant and cut and be effective and quick when you're flat-footed and standing up. So now everything takes a lot longer. So it helped me to see the mechanics very, very early of the technique. So when I can watch kids shooting or warming up or whatever, and I can instantly pick out something that they're doing, that if they just switched a little, this or that, then they would be much more successful. So that's what I think I love about development, because, you can give a player, a little, tweak here or there, and then you can see that light bulb go on, and then you see that skill just really blossom. And that's what I love about development. So it absolutely translated over, and that's why early I've always been able to have that eye. When I watch players, when I was playing myself, I could look at defenders and see their tendencies very quickly and take advantage of it. So it just all just kind of helped my game and helped me coach, that much more.
No, that's awesome. So that's one of the things that I try to pride myself on when on like in game situations, just trying to watch my opponents to see what they're doing, to see how I can try to attack that. But I feel like my level is probably like right here, and then your level is like off the charts, you know. So what's one of the because I know you train a lot of younger athletes and professional athletes. What do you feel as though is like one of the lost skills or lost art to the game today? Mm.
Fundamentals. It's just fundamentals across the board. If you remember when we had the dream team and they were just killing
Hmm.
everybody, well, the US was just so athletic and just so talented. That's what the focus was, fundamentals. You had guys then that, like a Colby, that practiced over and over and over, and they didn't get bored with the fundamentals, with just the
Hmm.
basics. We've moved into a culture where we play all the time. Kids are getting injured earlier, and it's all about being seen so I can get the scholarship or the notoriety. And that's so we have now a big disconnect where we have kids coming into high school who can't use their offhand. They don't know how to throw a no look pass. They can't hold a pivot foot. They're traveling. And all those things are just basic. They're basic. So now, like I said, fast forward, we see today where the other countries have now caught up to the US and they're beating US basketball. And that's why, because they understand that it's in the details, so they have academies. Kids grow up and they go to academies and they grow up learning the game from a very early age. Well, over here, we have kids that they play video games and they stay inside and they don't go out and play pickup, and all those outside games that we did that made you athletic. And then they get into high school or junior high and their friends are playing sports and they say, oh, I want to play that too. Let me try. Well, they're behind the curve, because they're now playing with kids that have started playing since 4 and 5 years old, and now they're behind, and now they have to hurry up and catch up. And then you have parents with money that say, oh, I want my child to be on this AAU team or that AAU team, and they're not prepared and they're not ready. But hey, you've got coaches out there that'll take their money and say, hey, I'll put them on the team. And then the kid goes out there and either gets embarrassed or they barely get any playing time. They don't get any development. And it really discourages them. And they usually tend to just fall right on off. So it's really hard to watch, because fundamentally, you see a drop off in how the game is played. It's all about highlight videos nowadays. Kids want to come into the gym and the first thing they want to do is shoot. They don't want to hear we're having a practice without a basketball. What?
Like, how do
I
you
put
do that?
around, yeah, how do you do that? I put the ball in the hole. How do you mean we're going to practice? Well, there's a lot more than shooting this ball in that hoop. There's footwork, there's defense, there's, uh, watching the game, running, conditioning, all those things. And
Mhm.
that's not the stuff that they want to do. But other countries recognize that over here in the States, we have athleticism out of the wazoo. In particular, in both the men's and the women's game, but in particular, on the men's side, the boys' side, they don't necessarily develop the fundamentals like women or girls do because they can rely on their athleticism to jump, to run fast, to be quick, and to rebound quickly and get off their feet quickly. And other countries don't necessarily have that. So we've now come to just rely on that. And that's what's putting,
Mhm.
us a little bit behind the curve. Whereas on the women's side, it's all about the fundamentals. And then you get into the argument about, do we drop the rim, because they want to see dunks and, all the highlights that you get on the men's side. But if you love the game, when you watch a women's game, you understand, wow, that's some good stuff that they're doing. Wow, look at that pass, or look at that
Mhm.
footwork, and look at how she did this and got past that defender. And it doesn't matter if it's a man, male, or female. It's just good
Mhm.
basketball. She might
Mhm.
not be jumping and going through the legs and hot, dunking like that,
Right.
but it's still athleticism and beauty, because really love is beauty. And when you love something, you see the beauty of it in
That's a quote right there. Love is beauty.
it.
That's a quote. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I love about the W is they're so fundamentally sound, and it's ridiculous with some of the footwork that I see, just the handles, some of the players' IQ. Like it's amazing for me to watch at times, and um, I definitely agree with that. So let's do this. Okay, so hi, my name is Desmond. I'm in high school, right? Let's say we're gonna rewind the clock, right? I'm going back to high school.
Okay.
Help me navigate my career to get to play at college, or some of the things I should be doing, or some of the things I shouldn't be doing as I start my high school career trying to make it to that next level.
Well, the first thing that we have to find out is where your skill ability is. Um,
Hmm.
some kids are coming into high school having played maybe a year, sometimes not even at all. And they're saying, hey, I want to play in college. So, realistically, we have to find out what type of ability that they have. Because, let's face it, 4 years it's not a lot of time, but it's still enough time to be able to, get something out of your career. So that's first and
Hmm.
foremost. If you're someone that's played since, like I said, the age of 5, and you've come through AAU, or not even that, you've played the game, you're familiar with the game, you enjoy it, you're a hard worker. The first thing I say is ask, do you want to play in college? If they say yes, I say, where do you want to play in college? Because you've got NAIA Division 3 on up to Division 1.
Hmm.
So some players just want to play for the love of the game and want to go to college, and some players need college to play the game. If that make or needs,
Yeah.
in order to get to college, they've got to play the game to get there.
Yeah.
So I need to find out where they kind of fit in. So for that player that wants to go Division 1, they have those high hopes at Division 1. I ask them what their workouts look like, or do they actually work out on their own? And that's where the rubber
Mm.
meets the road, kind of. You find out who's actually doing something at home, and who really just has these dreams of grandeur and, of getting to the next level, but really isn't putting any work in. So I kind of lay it all out for them. If you're trying to go D1, this is what a Division I day in the life of an athlete looks like. And sometimes, they're like, wow, I don't really want to work that hard. And sometimes they're like, wow, okay, I can do this. And then we continue into, okay, we assess their skills, where their weaknesses are, what their goals are, when they're going into high school. Some are just to make the team. Others want to start, and they either want to be like a 3-point specialist, or they want to be a point guard, either or. 6'5" to, well, actually taller, but for guys, 6'7" on down, you're a point guard. You could be on the floor with other guys that are your height, and you need to handle the ball. So, everybody's got to be a ball handler. But, when you have that kid that wants to be a point guard in particular, well, now you're talking position specific. So there's, specific drills and things that, we would work on to, kind of get them to where they need. But in terms of the recruiting process, because the recruiting process is huge. Nowadays, there's so many different AAU events, which is good for to get out there and be seen. However, a lot of those coaches are sitting on the courts where all the high level players and the ranked players are playing. So if you're not ranked and you're not in that category, you tend to be all the way across this huge arena on the opposite side on a court where there's not really any coaches that are seeing you. So you have to do your legwork in order to be seen. You need to reach out to coaches. You need to go to camps so that they can see your face. You need to send them video to show them, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. And then each year you need to show them, hey, I'm now a junior. This is my freshman year. This is my sophomore year. Now I'm a junior, and these are the things that I'm doing. So it makes it easier for that recruiter to say, wow, this kid, has grown exponentially. I can see the potential in them. If we were to get them, hey, I want to offer them. Or they might say, hey, I see your progress, but, here at the University of, so-and-so, this is the type of game we run. So we really need a player that does X, Y, Z. In that case, this player that says, okay, well, I really would, want to become that player, then, they have to switch their training to then, be functional to become, that kind of trainer. The few things that I tell players you absolutely do not want to do, and that is go home and sit on your butt, eat a poor diet, and don't exercise. Because it doesn't matter what any sport is, conditioning is number one. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter. You could be Michael Jordan. If I'm playing against Michael Jordan and he's gassed, none of his talent matters because he's gassed. It all goes out the window. So now my conditioning has taken over. And that's what people don't understand. It's not about having all this skill ability and being able to do all these neat little tricks. That's all well and good for a video. But to truly be effective, conditioning. And that's just flat out put on your tennis shoes and go out and run 400s, 100s, 200s, a mile and a half, 2 miles every day, every other day, push-ups, sit-ups, bench, incline, squats, just basic stuff. And if you don't have a gym to do bench and squat and all that other stuff, do body weight. You can find stuff in your house, gallon jugs that you can hold, that you can, lift on your arms and use to do lunges and squats and things like that. So, it can get lengthy, but at the end of the day, if you're just putting in the work every day in some way, then you're going to get there. And that's the type of players that I love working with, because you see that fervor in them to want to get better and
Hmm.
to do better. I can give them a technique to work on, and then that next week, we're working on it, and they say, hey, and I put them through the paces, and I could say, okay, I see you're finishing better. You're getting higher off the ground,
Yeah.
instead before where you were trying to reach to clap the backboard, now you're finishing and, you're rocking the backboard, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, that's how I kind of guide the person, through. Now, there's a lot of coaches out there that'll say, yeah, I'll do that for you. Give me some money. Nothing is for
Hmm.
free, of course, but you also have to, if you're going to hire someone to help your kid or to train your kid, you have to sit down with them, or you got to listen to them and find out how they're going to train your child, or the player. And then it has to be functional, because you have this
Hmm.
one-on-one training, and you've got a kid that, I've seen, some players that have said, well, yeah, I've been training for years. And then they get in games and they either freeze up, or, they can't really be effective. And you wonder, well, why can't they? Well, because it's not functional. Doesn't matter how
Hmm.
long you're training, that all has to be functional and translate over into the game. And if you're just having them shoot, hundreds of shots without any pressure, any other type of variable in place, lo and behold, they get in the game. Now they're pressured and they can't shoot.
Yeah.
Or now they've got, instead of being able to shoot off the dribble, which they love doing, now they've got to run off screens and catch and shoot, and they can't.
Hmm.
Because, well, they never ran off screens, in training. So you got to make it functional, and it needs to be, have different variables added to it in order for it to, translate over.
No, I that totally makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of times a lot of players do get into the one-on-one training, or just not enough practice or not enough repetitions. Like they think that their practice time is when they go to the gym, and it's
Hmm.
actually really just what they do outside of the gym. What they eat, especially even though that some of them might be young, they feel as though oh, I can eat whatever I want, but that's not necessarily the case, because you whatever your body's a temple, and so whatever you put into it, is what it's going to put out. And some of that
Hmm.
stuff I wish like I knew at a younger age, because I know maybe I would have been maybe that much more of a better athlete, but um
Hmm. I mean, and it's really having a coach that's
hmm
willing to take that time to give you that. Because in all honesty, we have coaches out there that they either don't have that time or don't want to take that time to kind of, check in on the kids when they leave the court, see what they're eating, see what they're doing. How are you feeding your mind as well as your
yeah.
mouth? Those types of things. And that takes a commitment, to that player. Like I said, that's love. So
hmm Definitely. Definitely, that's love. What's one thing that kids should do more of, and then what's one thing that kids should do less of? So, for example, like, uh, go ahead. I saw the light bulb
yeah, it's
flash.
funny. Yeah, yeah. because I it's funny you ask me these questions, because these are the things that I talk about a lot, with other
Yeah.
coaches, and with parents. um, Kids should do more drilling and practicing on their own. um, when I grew up, we lived down the street from the college. So I would, my youth coach lived literally at the top of our hill, and he had a little like mini court there with a hoop attached to his garage, and all the
Yeah.
neighborhood kids would sit on the hill and play wait to play, pick up and things. But at the college, there were outside hoops.
hmm
So I would go up there a lot. And I remember Cheryl Miller was my idol.
Mm.
And I would watch games and I would see her do stuff. And the minute that game was over, I'd grab my ball and I would go right up to the college and I would just practice, practice, practice. I could see those moves in my head and I would emulate those moves and do them over and over until I got it right, until I saw, yeah, that's what she's doing. And kids nowadays, they see the highlight part. They see the either the dunk or some type of crazy something or other, and they're practicing that. Kids are practicing more half court shots than they
Mm-hmm.
are doing form shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And so how much sense does it make when, how often are you going to shoot a half court shot as opposed to a mid-range, 10 to 8 foot shot in a game, or a layup for that matter? But they're not necessarily practicing those. So just, go grab a ball, go to a court and shoot and work on things on your own. Do more of that, because that is what keeps you engaged and keeps you interesting. And do less of the highlight stuff. I can't tell you how many times I see kids coming in and their first shot is a 3 point uh, hard away shot where they kick their foot out and they fall off and they shoot.
Yeah.
I see it over and over and over again. Or they're dribbling to the basket, they're jumping up and they're doing a 360 and trying to throw the ball up. Haven't warmed up, haven't stretched, none of
Yeah.
that. So not only are they practicing bad habits, they're going to essentially get hurt.
Yeah.
So they need to do a lot less of that stuff. That's the stuff that comes when you're a Kobe Bryant, that you've been playing overseas and you've been playing for many years and you've been practicing and drilling for years and years and years. That's the stuff that you can do. And they don't even do that coming in the gym. They come in and do the stuff that they should do. They go through a series of warm-ups, then they go through a series of stretches. Then their warm-up sometimes is almost like a game. It's a game within the game, you
Yeah.
know, and then they play. And then they play
Mm-hmm.
for an hour or 2 hours. So, players don't realize, yeah, there's a whole warm up that needs to happen. You got to get your body ready to do that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it might be fun. And you think, oh, yeah, I'm just playing around. But everything translates. You do it long enough and it's going to translate to something. So that's what I would tell them to do and what not, and what to stop doing.
Yeah. No, it's important because I can't tell you how many times like I've like been in the gym and I see, kids shoot from half court. I'm like, it's not you talked about being functional. That's not really functional. Like it's not something that often that you do. Let's maybe work on your handles, work on the off ball. You know, um let's try to, work on finishing at the rims, actually doing proper footwork to
Right.
finish. It's a lot of different, things that kids can be doing instead of, but sometimes depending on like I think the group that you're in, or who you're with, you just kind of follow what the crowd does. Like, if everyone's shooting half court shots, if people just fall in line and do that. So
hmm And
um
every now and again, you see that kid that kind of goes off on their own
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're over there doing form shooting and they're
Hmm.
working on those moves.
Hmm.
And when I see those kids, those are the kids that I go over to and I say, hey, nice job. I see you're getting better. No,
Yeah,
thanks, coach. And
yeah.
you could tell, and they take pride in that, and you can see their
Yeah.
confidence growing.
Hmm.
And so I'd like to see more kids do that.
Yeah. I growing up, I was definitely one of those kids. Like I spent a lot of time off to the side just trying to. I probably shot way too many jumpers, but I could have been working on something else. But but at the time, I didn't know those drills that I could have been doing, should have been doing, and
Right,
so
right.
let's talk about the W. What's your thoughts on the league and how it's grown so far, and just the state of the W with where it's at right now?
Um, I love women's basketball.
Yeah.
What can I say? Uh, I would like to see it grow. Um, it when you talk finances, that's when, it all gets kind of muddled, because at the end of the day, you
Mhm.
have to be able to support it.
Yeah.
And, just like with other things, you've got to have the men support what the women do. And I think that, it's really gained a lot of traction, and it's getting more support. Um, but what's interesting is, you know, players that I've talked to and that I've coached,
Mhm.
girls, I ask about the games or who their favorite player is or whatever, and they say, I don't watch women's basketball. And it's
Mm.
like, wait a minute, how can you be a woman? How could you be a girl or a woman and not
Yeah.
watch women's basketball? Because if you aspire to play in college and eventually play pro, then why wouldn't you watch the league that you're aspiring to go into? So, that's part of, I think where, we do and they do market, the young girls, but we really need to find that middle age, that middle school to, well, heading to middle school to ninth grade age, where we target them really hard, and show them not only what sport can do, but how it can help develop them, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually. And the W does a lot of good marketing now, so that part of it's good. Um, the talent is off the charts. I mean, it's crazy. I like that they get paid more money now. However, it's still not comparable. You know, the Diana Taurasi's and the Brittany Griners, they should be making millions. They, if a, whatever round draft pick that, is just a practice player, if he could make a million plus, why isn't our best W player making at least 1.5 million to 2? And I think when the money, is a little bit more comparable, then I think we'll see a little bit more growth as well. Because at one time we, play over here and then have to go overseas in order to supplement the income. You know,
Mhm.
um, at least we're getting more money, so it's a process. There's no one, you know, anecdote that you could say, hey, if we do this, this will happen. But we have to have support on the men's side.
Mhm.
Um, when I saw um, uh, Cynthia Cooper and Tina Thompson and Houston's team, they won 4 straight championships, and then the team went defunct. So, how do you win championships like that? How do you have that much talent and then, you disband the team? So,
Yeah.
I don't quite know what the answer is, but we need to figure out some way um, to 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 get even more traction, to bring to make an even longer season. I mean, the men play what, 80, 90 games in a season,
It,
and
it
the
feels like it
women
never
play.
stops.
Actually, it's funny you say that, because I was just saying yesterday how I feel like last season just ran right into this season because of COVID. And,
Yep.
it's nonstop NBA, so we have to have social media to make it important, because when social media makes it important, then it
Mhm.
becomes important. I can't tell you how many kids that say, did you watch that TikTok this, or, that this was on Instagram, or that was on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Well,
Mhm.
when you start putting the W games, highlights on social media, and highlighting the lives of the athletes like they do on the men's side, when you do that kind of stuff, then you humanize those players and you help bring it home for some of those girls that, you know, aren't necessarily watching or wouldn't have watched that say, hey, I think I like this, or I like her. She does this. I want to do that, because that's what kids do. They emulate what they're seeing on social
Mhm.
media. So media plays a huge part in what we tend to watch and what we like over here in the States. But that's because we're a capitalistic society and it's all about the money, whereas in other countries they don't necessarily have that type of access to the internet, to different apps, to certain technologies, and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it's just, I could go on and on, but longer story short, I think that it's an awesome league. The
Yeah.
talent is out of sight. And,
Mhm.
I just hope that it will continue to grow in teams, not just in notoriety, but in teams, because there's women that aren't making the roster simply because the league is just
This
so
is so.
talented, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So we should see those players playing as well, and not, getting shut out because there just isn't, a team or a market for them.
I totally agree with everything that you just mentioned. I do agree that marketing has definitely been better for the W. I'm thankful for my wife for kind of introducing me to the game. Back when we first started dating 5 4 4 4 5 years ago, whatever the case is. Um, it's been a while for us now, but because growing up for me personally, we didn't really talk about the W, and at most we definitely, if we saw the women's like games being played at a high school gym, or there's a women's game going on, we know we'll be there to support, but we never really thought about the 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 W at the time. And the W's been around for 25 years, and so looking back on it, I wish things were different back then. But now I see that we're there's more marketing right now, and that there's a better effort as putting out there. So I'm hoping like kids today, especially younger women, know more about the W now, and at least
Hmm.
be introduced with it, and at least build up an interest with it, and also not only follow it but to support it as well. Just because we
Hmm.
want to see the W grow, because it deserves to grow. They definitely deserve the more money. They deserve everything that the men get. The woman deserves just as much, or if not even more.
Because that the training that we have to do is the same type of training that a man
Yeah.
has to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. In order to be very good at your craft, you have to practice it over and over again and work hard at it. And if that's what you do, then you should be rewarded for it, period. When we have a
Mm-hmm.
job, we interview for a job and they ask us what salary we're asking for. Well, this is what I'm worth.
Yeah.
I'm asking you for what I'm worth. And that's what they need to do, for the women. And I think if you get more people watching it, well, then of course you get more media, which then begets more money, which then, becomes a wheel that, gets bigger and bigger and gains more notoriety. But
Yeah.
like you said, yeah, me personally, for the young ladies that I coach, I make it
Mm-hmm.
mandatory. You have to go watch a game, and
That's
you
what I'm
have
talking
to
about.
tell me who your favorite player was and what they did that made them your favorite player.
Mm-hmm.
What was it about the game that you liked or didn't like?
Yeah.
Because you want to hear that from a young lady's perspective. Well, I don't like that they do this and I don't like that they do that. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know for somebody like me, I'm a WBCA member. So I can say, as a coach, my players are saying this, maybe we should look at changing that. and
Mm-hmm.
and then indirectly they become a change agent. They don't really get that and understand that, but
Right.
they can. But they have to at least go to the games and say and
Mm-hmm.
see it and say, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And some of them fall in love with it. A lot of them say, wow, I didn't know they did this, and I saw that. And you kind of see a little light kick up in them, and that's what you want, and
Mm-hmm.
it also helps me to show them, see, this is to attain that, because this is what you're saying you want. To attain
Yeah.
that, these are the kinds of things that you're going to have to do. So it just kind of ties all the things that I say and all the ways that I coach, it ties it all together for them.
Absolutely. Who are some? I mean, if you have personal favorites, who are some of your personal favorites in the W right now?
Natasha Cloud, by
Okay.
far. She's an activist. She's a kind person. She I did junior NBA for the Wizards and the Mystics. And whenever we had a game day event, whenever we had a special event at a school, whenever she showed up, she always showed out. She was always energetic. She was always excited. She was always getting young girls involved. And she would always, if she couldn't sign autographs right then because she had to go warm up or whatever, she made it a point to say, hey, you stay right there, I'll be back. And she would go do what she had to do, and she would come back and she would take photos and sign as many autographs as the kids wanted. And that's the kind of person that you know every person should aspire to be. She's not only very good at her craft, but she gets in the community and she helps, and she lends her voice, and her time and talent, on the court and off the court. And she's always there for a young child or a young player. And that really, to me, is the epitome of what a professional should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because in all honesty, I saw some players that literally would go to the opposite entrance and exit to avoid having to deal with
Mm-hmm.
the kids that would ask for autographs or pictures.
Mm-hmm. That's so.
High name players that make a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
or that, the kids are like, oh, so, but they're all the way across the court. They would come in that way and they would go out that way. And knowing that we have a game day clinic, knowing that these kids would be waiting, because that's part of it. We want to
Mm-hmm.
help them grow and develop, but we also, need to tie in, the marketing piece for them, allow
Mm-hmm.
them to, see the players, take a picture, get an autograph or something. And when a player avoids them, it makes you wonder, wow, what's important to you? Because if it wasn't for these, kids whose parents have paid their money for, the clinics, and paid money to bring them there because the kid loves this player. So if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't really be getting the money you're getting and have the notoriety that you have. So why do you act like that?
Mm-hmm.
So, I always say Natasha Cloud, and I watched her play, I think it was last week, and man, phenomenal. She took a
Yeah.
whole season off and she managed to come back better than what she was the season
Yeah.
before. So she's just impressive to me on every level.
Yeah, no, it's always good to hear about those stories on at least our on this particular platform, because one of the things that we do is we like to capture those stories. We like to hear about those stories that that goes on behind the scenes that no one really knows about. So we appreciate
Right.
you sharing that story and those testimonies with us.
Absolutely.
Um, so I know you mentioned that you did the WNBA development for the Mystics and the Wizards.
The Wizards, mainly
The
for the
Wizards.
Wizards, yes.
Okay. Do you
Mhm.
want to talk about how you landed there and what was that experience like for you?
Well, it's interesting, just like anything else. It's who you know, or you're in the right place at the right time. So I managed to um, get hooked up with someone who was in the Georgetown program, and she mentioned, hey, they're starting this development, this youth development. So I was like, oh, that's me. That's me all day. And literally I got a phone call and sent my resume and things like that. I mean, now it's a little bit more difficult because there's a lot more people who know about it and know what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was literally just being in the right place at the right time, which is what happens with a lot of things. But they were Shannon. Actually, he lived in New York, so he moved to the DC metro area. So I had been with him since he kind of got it up and running again, and we just love basketball. He loves the game and development, and so it was just coming in and talking about, okay, these are the fundamentals. This is how we need to be teaching kids.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he came from a private school, so private school players are much different than public school players. Um, but it was always the focus of we got to build the player with a fundamental foundation. And so and I just loved it, and I loved being able to kind of be there when the kids would see the players and they light up and
Yeah.
and like I said with Natasha, to see them kind of play into the kid and play them up. And there's times when the kid will make a shot and she'll go wild and players will go wild, and it's just it's a really awesome thing. Like I said, it's love, it's beauty. The game is
Mm-hmm.
beauty, and it's love. And I love seeing that. And I love seeing, the players to be able to give that confidence and that those type of moments to kids that wouldn't necessarily get them.
Yeah.
Because some of these kids are getting these moments that are from the inner city that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford a ticket or a clinic. So that's kind of big. That's kind of big.
That is huge because it not only creates that moment, but also just creates that exposure. Because a lot of people, they don't get the opportunity to participate in those events like that. So
Hmm.
it's good to know that you have people out there like you that kind of help lead the charge and and kind of help orchestrate those events like that. So I mean that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
grassroots is very important. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand that, before I started coaching, but it didn't take long. I definitely understand that. These players need someone that care about them as a human being first. They care about their heart. They care about them, their lives off the court. I always say, how can you get the best of a player if you don't care about them off the court?
Yeah.
They everything that they are that at home they bring to that court, and if you can't or won't
Yeah.
address that, you can only get but so much out of that player.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that because I got some stories for offline conversation too. I could definitely talk to and relate to that. um, so I know you graduated and went to college and whatnot. How much has that education played a part in what you do on your your day-to-day activities?
Well, a master's degree nowadays is like a bachelor's degree used to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah.
So a master's, in my opinion, and I say to people, is a must.
Mm-hmm.
If you plan on being a professional. Now, if you can be a Bill Gates and just quit school, and if you're just highly intelligent and talented and can have your own whatever,
Yeah.
then hey, by all means, but that's a one in a however many thousand kind of thing.
Right.
So education is very important. You need to learn how to educate yourself, how to learn, because learning how to learn helps you not only in business and your job or whatever it is you choose to do, and in relationship, but it helps you in sport because you can teach someone something and to one player and they can pick it right up and then try to teach that same way to another player and they don't get it. So you
Yeah.
have to teach them different ways and different techniques, and one ties into the other. They're not mutually exclusive. That,
Hmm.
everything that you do, everything that you are, like, ties in, on the court, off the court, into your, daily living, things like that. So, um, yeah, I think that, yeah, I just that. So
Yeah.
for the sake of not continuing to go on, because I know I can get long winded.
No,
It
you're
just,
look, I've been
it
enjoying
all
it.
goes together.
Yeah. No, I've been
Oh, I
enjoying it
appreciate it.
because
I
you
appreciate it. My
yeah,
kids are
no.
like, every time it's time to, we wrap up, they're like, and they're looking at the, I know, I'm wrapping up.
No,
So,
I definitely enjoy it. So don't let it, speak from the heart. If it comes to your mind,
ah,
just go ahead and let it flow. Uh,
it's interesting. I had a gentleman tell me, because, like I said, I was in the fire department. And when I
mhm,
left the fire department, I went back to get my master's degree in coaching and athletic administration.
mhm,
So it, it's interesting. I grew up with the game. I knew the game, but there were things that I learned in that master's program, at
mhm.
Concordia, that I didn't really know. And
Yeah.
so it helped, usher me into coaching, and also helped with, to formulate my technique and my philosophy, because you think you know those things until
Mhm.
you're in it or running a program. And then you realize, wow, I never thought about that. Wow, I didn't know I have to do that, because you're just used to playing. Or you love the game, and you think, but it starts happening. You're like, wow, I really didn't know that. So
Yeah.
that was instrumental in helping to formulate what type of coach that I became. And I had a gentleman that I met at a basketball clinic once, and I
Mhm.
had mentioned I was finishing up my master's program, and he was like, "Why? You don't need a master's." And so,
Yeah.
after talking to him, I kind of walked away feeling like, wow, really deflated.
Yeah.
And then, finish the program, start coaching. Fast forward a year or two, and I went to a WBCA clinic. All I kept hearing was masters, masters, masters. Fast forward
Mm.
even further, then the jobs that were being posted, it was mandatory that you had a master's degree. So I
Mhm.
so I kind of, was able to pop my collar, like, yeah, I knew then I needed a degree. You tried to get me, you almost got
Yeah.
me, but you didn't. But it proved that, yeah, that's important.
Mhm.
Education is important, because even though it's the game of basketball,
Yeah.
you're teaching. You're just not in a classroom and they're sitting in a desk and you're in front of them at a blackboard. But you are absolutely doing what a teacher or a professor does. You are
Mhm.
breaking down a subject in order for them to digest it, to be able to, to learn from it, grow from it, but also to show you how they've learned it, or if they've learned it. So
Mhm.
it's absolutely the same thing. That's why I say education is absolutely important.
Yeah, I totally
But
agree.
I guess, I
No,
sorry
go
to
ahead. No,
interrupt,
no,
but
go
I
ahead. Go
guess
ahead.
I wanted to put the caveat in.
Mhm.
Education is important. However, education also has to have some type of um, life experience with it.
Mhm.
You can't just go to school and get degrees.
Mhm.
It doesn't work, because an education is one thing, and the way you get a degree, and you sit in a classroom, or you're on your computer or whatever, but in real life, that's real practice.
Yeah.
And so the example that I can give is, when I went to the fire academy, I was doing scenarios on a computer.
Yeah.
Or when we'd go out to the burn pad and, we would do simulations, that was one
Yeah.
thing. But when my very first call was a dump truck and a UPS truck head
Mm.
on. The UPS guy was laying in the middle of the street, brain matter coming out of his
Yeah.
ears. That was my first call. I had to run that. So even though I had medical scenarios in the
Yeah.
academy, it wasn't this. It wasn't people standing around watching.
Yeah.
It wasn't this, this actual physical human, who had something coming out of his head, who we
Yeah.
had to fly out, who we had to work on, you know, so, yeah, I needed the academy to help prepare me for that. But in all honesty, the real world scenario, nothing can compare you to that. That's why you have
Yeah.
people who don't have a degree, but they have all the, real world experience. So an employer can say, wow, you've done this, man, that's better than a degree because you've
Yeah.
seen it all, you've done it all, you've been there. So that's why I said, can I please put that caveat in? It's not just about an education. That
Yeah.
education has to be put in with real world practice.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I just recently attained my master's in engineering management. So I've been working on trying to, as I educate myself, try to have the experience to go along with it just because it goes, simultaneously, and just having that real world experience. Nothing can actually replace it, but also just having that education just kind of helps nudges you forward, a little bit.
Mhm.
And man,
It does.
I'm still thinking about that scenario where you see the guy, you know, brain fart.
Yeah, and trust me, that's kind of how I jumped off the rig, like
Yeah,
eyes this wide, like, okay, you're getting instruction, and that's where you also, the rubber meets the road.
hmm,
It's one thing to sit in an academy and they say, okay, this is what you'll see or this is what you need
yeah,
to do, and it's another thing you hop off that engine and it's time to put it into practice. Can I handle this? Can I handle seeing that blood? Can I handle knowing that this person's life is in my hand? So, the one thing that now that I coach, I always say it's not life or death. I know life or death. I've seen life or death, but I can calm players down because I can get them to understand this isn't life or death. This is just, yeah, it's important. Yeah, I know you want to do well. You don't want to mess up, but understand you'll live to fight another day. You'll live to do it again another day. So allow yourself, the leeway to be able to fail and don't be so hard on yourself.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's one.
that's a tough scenario.
Yeah, yeah. That last part you just said, just allowing yourself to fail, and I think, 'cause I played a lot of baseball in high school, and I played like a couple years in college, and a lot of times in baseball, you're failing more times than you're actually succeeding. Like, in baseball, you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, that's good. You bat 300. In real life, that's actually a failing, and so just
Hmm.
carrying that over to wherever I go in life, has helped propel me in a lot of different ways. Um,
Absolutely.
One thing I was going to ask you about, how has like being, a minority woman and being in coaching, like how much has that like played a part in your career? Like has that affected you or any different ways?
I believe it has.
Okay.
You know, Cappy Pondexter was the last black head coach we had in the W um, when she left the league, and we didn't have any black females. We're just now last season talking about two black females who were going head to head for a conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still having firsts. So I could
Mm-hmm.
really kind of go on and on about that, but just by that example, that shows you, that we're still behind the curve, as Black females, we
Yeah.
kind of are at the end. And when we do get that chance, we better make it happen quick, because we don't get, extended contracts, and we don't get long to be able to prove ourselves. So yeah, it is. But at the end of the day, I always look at everything through faithful eyes. God puts me where I need to be at exactly the right time. God gives me exactly what I need when I need it at the right time. So if it works out, hey, great. If it doesn't, it might hurt my little feelings, but I quickly back up and say, okay, Lord, this wasn't for me. You must have something else,
Amen.
and that makes it a little bit easier to deal with, as well.
Hmm.
That's why faith is so important, so
Hmm.
I rely on that, and I say, hey, if this wasn't for me, or hey, I got this, this must be where I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to grow, and grow some flowers here for a while, and then when that door
Hmm.
opens, it's time for me, to walk through it.
Yeah, no, faith is, man, faith is everything. Faith is the only reason why I am where I am today. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and I feel like that's a great tie-in to wrap up this first segment of our podcast with our interview portion. So now we're gonna loosen up a little bit. We're gonna have just a little fun. We're gonna go into our, into our rapid fire round where we ask people like either or questions. We call it the game within the game
Mhm.
segment. So my question for you is, are you ready to play?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love competition.
All right. All right. So here we go. So we're gonna start off light. So we're gonna ask, are you a oatmeal raisin fan or a chocolate chip cookie fan?
So I like them both.
Uh-huh.
And this is a testament to me being a Libra, because it's hard to make decisions sometimes. And also the fact that I'm very eclectic, because I like a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I love oatmeal raisin cookies, but I'm a chocolate lover.
Okay.
But if I had to pick, I'm going to go with the oatmeal raisin, because it's heartier and it's got that pop with the raisin,
Yep.
and it won't get overbearing like a chocolate chip cookie can. If there's too many chocolate chip cookies, you're just
Yeah.
tasting nothing but chocolate and less cookies. So I'll go with the oatmeal raisin.
Hey, I'm a oatmeal raisin
Final
fan.
answer.
So we here with the oatmeal raisins.
We're
So
bonding. We're bonded.
yeah, we're bonding. So, it's funny that you say that because I can always go for like a good chocolate chip cookie. Matter of fact, sad thing is, I know one of these days, when I was doing the recording, I had just mentioned like, look, I just had some chocolate chip cookies, so I feel like I'm cheating on oatmeal raisin, but I still love oatmeal raisin cookies more than the chocolate chip cookies. My next question for you is, TV shows or movies?
Movies. I
Mm,
love stories. To me, TV shows are more for entertainment.
yeah.
Not that a movie isn't, but movies tell stories. And
Okay.
as a kid, I always loved, my great grandmother would tell stories. And I loved
Mm,
being around older people, listening to how they grew up, listening
mhm.
to hard times in the cotton fields when they had to pick cotton, you
Yeah.
know, um, 12 kids, they're one of 12 or 15 kids, and times were hard, and how they had to work, and just stories. I've always loved hearing people's stories.
Hmm.
So movies. So it would have to be movies. My mother's favorite quote is, I love happy endings.
Mm,
So, and I'm that way too. I love
yeah.
happy endings.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I prefer TV shows just because I feel like I get more content, and but I you can't never
uh,
really go wrong. You can't really never go wrong with a good movie. So, I know Brady, my co-host, he does I've convinced him to go to the TV show route. So, but what's your favorite movie then?
Oh, I think there's two kind of running, but if I had to pick, I'd say The Color Purple. There's so many quotes for Black folks that come out of The Color Purple. You
Yeah,
told Hoppo to beat me. It, all those things. But
yeah,
just the story behind the story behind the story in that movie to me is
yeah,
just it's amazing. How you can split family up, and no matter how much you try, they're always going to find their way back. You're always, how you can, how Mr. was so mean, but at the end of his days he realized, wow, I need to soften my heart. And he ended up bringing, the sister back. And how Harpo and Sophia, he beat her, they beat on each other, they had all these kids and they split up, but at the end of the day they loved each other enough to come back, so nothing mattered. So I could go on, but there's just a lot of metaphors and similes and just stories in that movie that I love.
oh, oh yeah, absolutely. Like for me, my personal favorite is Harlem Nights, and it's just like the movie that in my family.
Shot me in my pinky toe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the movie that my whole family
Hmm.
can quote, and we can sit in a room, quote, and just laugh at it the whole time. And so that's probably why that's probably my favorite movie of all time.
I think my second oldest sister, Robin, she loves that movie too. She's a movie buff. She's definitely a
Yeah.
movie buff, but yeah, she loves that movie.
Yeah. So my next question is, so we're gonna transition to a couple of basketball questions.
Okay.
So, uh, Diana Taurasi or Sue Bird?
Woo. Okay. I say Tarasi because
Okay.
she's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little bit, she's younger, I think. Yeah, I think she's younger. Um, but she's got she's got a fire and a swag that comes off of her that Sue Bird doesn't. Like Sue Bird is just really she comes off very humble. Not to say
Mm-hmm.
that she doesn't get out there and scratch and claw like the rest of them, but
Yeah.
Diana Taurasi is unapologetically in your face giving it to you. Period. Just
Yeah.
period. So that's
Yeah.
why I think I'd have to go with Taurasi. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
and
agreeing
she
with you.
gets better every year. She could
Yeah.
be injured, and she's had a lot of injuries, and she could be injured and she could not be playing, but she manages when she comes back. She manages to be just as good, if not better, than when she was sitting out.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I seen her play like in person, before the pandemic, and watching her play, I was like, yo, I just love her. I love her attitude. I love the swag that she walks
Mhm,
with. I love just everything that she does. So I was just definitely it's like totally in love with. So I'm a definitely like
mhm.
a Taraji supporter. Uh, so other question: Who wins? I heard you mention it earlier, so I had to ask this one. So, who wins in a one-on-one? Cheryl Miller or Reggie?
Cheryl,
Okay,
because I think she's gonna beat Reggie up.
I I totally agree.
She's the older sister, so he might get her physically,
Hmm.
physicality wise, but she's gonna beat him up.
Yeah.
But guys, a lot of people don't understand, and I think it was a coach I was talking to a couple days ago, and he was saying people don't realize how nasty and how hard that females hit when
Yeah.
when they're on the court. If you really watch the game, man, you're seeing elbows flying, you're seeing
Hmm.
sometimes punches being thrown.
Yep.
They're
They
physical,
fight.
they're
They
physical
scrap.
and Yeah, they do. And it could get nasty. So I think
Mhm.
Cheryl Miller, being the older sister, says, there's no way I'm letting you win. And she does whatever she has to make it happen.
No, I totally agree with that. So my next question is, build your. I'll let you choose which one you want to do it in, but build your ultimate five that you want to go with, either the NBA or WNBA. So your starting five.
LeBron Anthony Davis,
Okay.
Diana Taurasi,
Okay.
Elena Deladon,
Hmm.
and Natasha Cloud.
Okay.
That's my five. That's my
Okay.
five. You've got superstar power, but you
Yeah.
also have good people. Like I I think um all of the people that I named off the court, the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that they do for their communities
Yeah.
is exemplary. So
Mm.
I don't think they're exclusive. I think if you're a good person, if you love people and you try to help your community, I think that absolutely helps make you an even better player
I totally agree
because
with
you
that
get
too.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. There's no argument here for me with that. what what's the only reason I ask is because I noticed that you have a lot of books in your background. But what's a book, one book that people should definitely read if they haven't read yet?
Oof, gosh. I've read a lot of good books. I, this is totally unsport related, but
That's fair.
I always mention this book. Um, I The Practice.
The
This
practice.
this book is this book is by actually I think it's like literally right behind me. Um, but that book is by Keith Jordan. And he started out as a chiropractor. And I think you might have heard in my last, in a different podcast that I did about how I came to him. I
Hmm.
was, uh, had just finished college and I was trying to play pro ball and my back went out. Um,
Mm.
and a friend of mine referred me to someone who then referred me to him. So we started out with like I said, he was a chiropractor, so he was, you know, working with my back. Then we moved to reflexology, and then we moved to holistic care. So he's a holistic doctor that that no longer does chiropractic work,
Hmm.
but he works with your spirit. So
Mm.
I literally went from getting my back cracked to laying on the table talking about my childhood, what mattered to me, how I thought, how I felt. And, you would think, wow, you're paying money for this? You might as well go see a counselor. But at the end of the day, it was much deeper, much bigger
Hmm.
than that. And he said he always wanted to write a book, and he had a hard time writing the book. So he actually came out with a series of um, DVDs
Hmm.
where he was, talking on them. And then eventually he wrote The Practice. And The Practice is literally a book that you can read a paragraph or two, and you literally have to set it down and sit
Mm.
back and let what you were reading
Yeah.
sink in, because it's all about the practice of life. And you don't think about, we practice in sport. You don't think about
Hmm.
practicing life. You know what I'm saying? But really, that's what, when you're in these situations, or, when you find yourself someplace, you're practicing life. You're going through this situation and something happens to you, and how do you act or react, or what do you do? Well, now you've just taught yourself how something and practiced at it, so that when that comes up again for you, you
Mhm.
know, oh, this is how I act and this is how I react. And if I don't
Yeah.
want to do that when this situation comes around again, what do I need to do? Things like that. So now you have to practice how not to do that, or how to continue to do that. So, but the book is very deep and it's very rich. It's a book that you read probably once a year to kind of remind
Mhm.
you of various things.
Mhm.
Um, and it, like I said, it just really makes you sit back and think about not just who you are and why you do the things that you do, but what it all means. And at
Mhm.
times it can get overwhelming, because, like, as a faithful person, when you think about God, and then there's times when you have all these questions, and then you're reading the word, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just, things get so big, you think to yourself, wow, that's just way too much. I can't, my mind can't hold that or fathom that. At times that's where it leads you, but then you'll read something else that'll bring you back, that'll show you, this is all a practice. You're
Mhm.
exactly where you need to be, exactly the right time, doing exactly what you need to, in order for the Lord to use you in a way that he needs to use you, so that you might be that mouthpiece for this little girl or little boy that you're going to meet 5, maybe 10 years down the line, that will really need what you have. And when you think
Mm.
about that, it's like, wow, that's my legacy.
Yeah.
That's my legacy. So if I can have that on my tombstone, if I could be that in life, then
Yeah.
that's what would go on my tombstone. And that's what you leave behind. That's, the face of God, the heart, the love,
Mhm.
your spirit. That's what you leave in this world, when you go.
Yeah. No. It sounds like a fantastic book to read that I'm gonna definitely mention to my wife and say, look, we need to probably add this book to our collection.
Absolutely. You'll absolutely love it.
I'm,
Absolutely love it.
I wrote it down, so I'm definitely going to get it. Especially I got an upcoming road trip that I can probably get some reading in.
There's
So
also,
what?
let me mention, there's
Uh,
also an online portion to it. So
okay.
he's got a course. He's got courses that go along with the book, and free of charge. So if you choose to donate, you can. If not, then you don't have to. But it's thepractice.com, and it will take you through the course. And you would think, because the book's not that thick, it's probably about like that, so you would think, it won't be, too lengthy or anything, but it asks some questions that, you know
Yeah.
could take you a couple days to really think about and answer. And
Yeah.
it's more for yourself,
Hmm.
just self-reflection, and really just to get the most out of, where you're trying to get to, and who you're trying to be.
No, like I said, it sounds like a fantastic book to add, and definitely the resources that's available on thepractice.com. Um, so another question for you, and this will be the last question in our rapid fire segment, is if you had a chance to take over an organization, who are you choosing?
That is big. um you know because I'm older, if I was younger, I'd probably rattle off really quickly, my favorite WNBA team.
Yeah.
But because I'm older and I know how business works,
Yeah.
when you get into the weeds of, how of running a business, then
Mm-hmm.
it really makes you stop and think, huh. But I guess I would have to say, for personal and professional reasons, I guess I'd have to say uh, LA. I'd have to say
Okay.
the Lakers.
Okay.
One, because it's run by the Bus family, and they make a lot of money. They've
Right.
shown history shown that they're willing to put the money into not only the players but the organization as a
Mm,
whole.
mm,
So when you know that you have an employer that will back you, that will pay you what you're worth, then that's where you want to work.
mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I would have to say the Lakers. I'd be able to be around basketball. I would be able to be around, my favorite player,
Yeah.
but I would also be able to be paid what I'm
Yeah.
worth,
Mm,
because out on, the West Coast, it's high dollar. So
yeah.
you know,
No,
you
I
work
follow you.
hard, you play
Yeah.
hard, and you make money doing it. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
No, that's a great pick. So, and I think you're the first one that actually mentioned the Lakers. So, I applaud the pick.
And they got championships, so I'll get
They
some rings.
do. You do. You could probably collect both, two hands worth,
Right, right, right.
But no, it's been this whole interview has been fun. It's been great. You have a beautiful story and you're just all around amazing on so many different levels. I'm sure we can keep talking for hours, but we're gonna go ahead and
Absolutely, yeah.
we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But for the people that are listening, do you mind sharing your socials so people can follow along with your career and stay in tune with what you're doing?
Absolutely. Right now, and my website's under construction, but
Okay.
I'm at Lockett Hoops, locketthoops.com. Um, and I'm a Instagrammer, Lockett Hoops. So you can find me on Lockett Hoops on everything, because that's my name, that's my business. So Lockett Hoops, you can you can find me.
All right. So for those that are listening, please follow Miss Tiffany Lockett as she continues the journey to the career. And for everyone else that's listening, please tune in and follow the Capturing the Game on Instagram at capturing underscore the underscore game underscore pod. Also, subscribe and like our YouTube page, which is Capturing the Game podcast. We can be found on Twitter at CTG underscore podcast and also on Facebook at Capturing the Game Pod. So once again, we just thank you for listening. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in to all the episodes thus far. We've enjoyed every single one of our interviews that we had so far, and we look forward to continue to share more on this particular platform. So thank you for tuning in once again.